paid for by the CRA. For the life of me, I cannot find more than $40,000 in cost in that park. It's a rock, a couple of benches, and a couple of trees. That money is gone. Barnesville Art Park. I've been fighting for the last 2 months about keeping it from going private, and yet the CRA gave 50 grand to build a new sign to go outside the park, so the park would be advertised even though we're closing it because we ran out of money. Finally, Atwater Village. The CRA told Atwater that they're blighted, even though the Atwater Neighborhood Council said, actually, we're not. So, I don't like the CRA at all.
Okay, Tom LaBonge, then Stephen.
I like Jerry Brown. He used to live in Silver Lake, lived on Lucille down near Sunset. He's going into government right now again at this time, and he's trying to reorganize the 58 counties. All these agencies, there's 429 cities or something that have agencies like this. I say we have to look at everything, but I think there has been great strides that have made back many years ago in the redevelopment of South Los Angeles, in parts of Central Los Angeles, and even Hollywood. And how many went back to Hollywood, if you could do a little instant poll, when they transformed Hollywood in the last 10 years? Anybody go back to Hollywood? Felt something that was changed, that it was a welcoming spot, not go up to Pasadena and Old Town? So there's a benefit, but it absolutely should be looked at. And when you cross the intersection of Hillhurst and Findlay, thank the CRA, because I was able to get the money from the CRA to pay for the light at Findlay and Hillhurst, which is very important for that part of Los Feliz. Thank you.
Stephen?
2 years ago, when the budget advocates were working with the mayor's office, the proposal to abolish the CRA was put on the table. Last year at the first candidates forum for this particular race, I stood again and said that there's absolutely no way that the city can be in the middle of a $400+ million deficit while the CRA has almost $500 million in surplus money, and the city of LA considers that a budget crisis. Actually, it's a crisis of leadership. You can't have one department flush with cash while another one's suffering. If you add in the next layer, which is the city of LA, the CRA rather, appraised a property at $4 million, paid $5.85 million, and then sold it back to the same guy for almost $600,000. This is the kind of back and forth use of your money, which is absolutely criminal anywhere else on earth, except when the CRA does it. So it should be abolished, that money should come back to the communities, and as of yesterday, Sacramento's estimates are that it would amount to $329 per child in LA County. At 700,000 kids, that's $220 million to our schools, and $200 million to our city, and that's absolutely all the evidence I need to know. Let's abolish the CRA.
Okay, it's not so much that the CRA is bad. We are desperate, okay? The schools are already desperate. I mean, how many kids are you going to stuff into a classroom before it just all falls apart? This is a black and white decision that's going to be made this year. Either you keep the CRA and all the money for the benches and the museums and all the stuff that you guys love, or you actually fund the schools this year. The schools are actually starting to come back. They're starting to do things better. And now they're going to pull the rug out from underneath them. To me, it's just right and wrong with which you do. Thank you. I wasn't educated in LAUSD.
All right, does anybody, Tom, do you want to respond to that at all?
I think we've got to look at everything, and everything counts to look at. But there has been progress, there has been mistakes, but we absolutely got to look at everything now, Joe.
All right, somebody would like to know, I think is my mic working? Can you hear me? All right. Somebody wants to know what all three of you gentlemen think about the procedure to close public stairways, and what do you intend to do about it? Let's go ahead and start with Stephen Box.
Those stairways are absolutely wonderful community assets, and so I've toured some of the stairs, and I think that we should do everything we can to preserve them and to protect them. And if there's a public safety issue, I think there are other ways to address it. I think that it's absolutely essential that we preserve the character and personality and avoid sanitizing things, because if you look at some of the neighborhoods where we've stripped the human element, we've deprived those communities of their their substance, their legacy, and what you end up with is a place that actually deteriorates even further than it was when the original problem was dealt with. So I absolutely think the stairs are brilliant. I love Dan Coppell's tours. I love some of the exercise we get. And I love the fact that I keep finding new ones I never saw. The first, I don't know how many times I passed by, and that's what makes it so great to live here. We're always discovering something else and connecting with LA's past. And that's what I think makes it a great place to live.
Silver Lake walks. The more people walk, the less fear there is. And that's what you see. Lighting is real important. There are certain challenges that took 30 years ago plus, during the time when there was not the kind of safety and the very effective community-based policing that we have at the Los Angeles Police Department now, that people petitioned the Board of Public Works to close those steps. Mitchell Tweedy used to be closed by the free clinic. It's open. We're looking at the one right down at Parkman and Sunset to work with them. But we have to work with the people who are there, because if you live next to a stair now, we want to assure you that if it's open again, that it can work. So I look at cooperation with the neighborhood, especially the neighborhood council and you, Elizabeth, to help with this issue. Thank you.
I think they also closed the street up towards the Hollywood sign. It's a public street and there's a barricade across it or something. And that makes me really nervous. Just a few weeks ago, they almost made Barnesville private. That's a public park. It's public-private partnership is what they like to call it. But it's just going to become a private park for the most part. You know, if we, again, spent money on the things that we ought to spend money on, we would clean and renovate those steps, we would light those steps, and alleviate whatever the concerns are for the neighbors. And again, you know, we can close everything off. I can stay up in the hills in Los Feliz and pretend to myself that nothing is going on in Los Angeles. You know, we need to be connected. We need to all live together, work together. We're already doing it in the schools. I don't want to live up in a house up in the hills and pretend that everything is fine. And I know I don't want to close off my street to other people. I want to meet them. That's why I live in Los Angeles.
Thank you, everybody. I think we're going to wrap up in about 15 minutes. If you're, I know my rear end's starting to go all kind of dead, so it won't be too much longer. But we do have a few interesting questions left. One's very, very local, and the question is, it's really about the neighborhood council. Would you fight to keep neighborhood councils funded and even let us generate income through local parking fees and other money-making possibilities? Tom LaBonge, you want to start it out?
I think neighborhood councils have to be as engaged. What has happened over the years, and many people got involved in neighborhood councils, got defeated by bureaucracy, and they went back to the neighborhood associations. They went back to just planting trees, back to just helping their libraries. I think we have to have more civics involved in how to get things done, and I would certainly look at the shared piece of what it would be to fund it. But right now, I couldn't commit to taking money, which goes for police and fire and public works, to a neighborhood council, but I'm open to look at everything. This is important. I look for neighborhood councils to come up with ideas that help move the city along. Thank you.
Tom, did you answer our, I'm sorry, will you fight to keep neighborhood councils funding and even let us generate income? So there's a second part there.
Just like the CRA, everything's on the table, but I know the value of neighborhood councils, and I would want to make sure what funding could be there would be there. But we're going to look at the whole budget, Jill. You know, we're going to look at everything.
All right, Tomas?
You know, I gotta say, I've worked with the Greater Grove Park Neighborhood Council and the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. And we fight all the time in the neighborhood councils. And that's a good thing. It's because we actually care about what we do. The neighborhood councils spend their money so much more wisely than any city department I know. There is a garden being installed in the Mitchell Trainer right now by the board of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. The thing is what, 20 grand, 25 grand? We put in a garden at King Middle School, the Greater Griffith Park Neighborhood Council put it in. A bunch of volunteers, cost $18,000. The neighborhood councils spend their money so frugally. This Silver Lake Neighborhood Council is doing their website in-house. I think, Claude, you're doing it, Madame, correct? Yes, you are doing the website yourself. Yes, sorry. I have to say, this city has acted with disdain for the neighborhood councils. The Department of Neighborhood Empowerment makes it more difficult for us to operate. So yes, I would fight for funding. I would even say to increase funding, because we get better bang for the buck at the neighborhood council level. Thank you.
I have fought for funding, and I was there last year fighting for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, which is a charter department, not an ordinance department. So when we put everything on the table, keep in mind the things that we start with are charter departments, and it's a charter department. I was there last year, and I was the one that pointed out that we staffed in the budget. We provided for the staffing. We forgot the operating budget. In other words, a deputy mayor, 2 general managers, and a full entourage of staff members all missed the fact that there was no money there to actually operate the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. You never saw so many people scratch so many heads so quickly. But that's because we were there fighting for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. So I have been, and I will be, fighting for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and the neighborhood councils so that they're fully funded and so that they can participate as peers, as equals, and as actually partners in moving the city of LA forward.
About 4 or 5 more questions, and if I would be allowed as moderator to throw in a question from a story we've been writing about in the LA News for about 4 years. It's about the illegal billboards all over Los Angeles. We don't know exactly how many there are. There are about 10,000 billboards in the city, and some people think there are 4,000 illegal billboards. They haven't been checked for earthquake safety. Nobody knows what's going to happen during the big one. People are getting very, very, very rich off of them. The city council has not begun to remove them, inspect them. It's one of the big failures. I'm not editorializing here. What can the city council do or should do? They haven't started. Can they start, Tom?
Our city attorney is very aggressive now. Our previous city attorney wasn't as aggressive. Our city attorney, Tanich, is extremely aggressive. I support him. Jane Usher, who is in Windsor Square, a neighborhood activist who is a lawyer for the city attorney, very aggressive, and I support that effort to do that because visual blight is not acceptable. Okay.
It's unfortunate it takes a city attorney to enforce the code, but it does. We live in a complaint-driven city where if you don't complain, the codes won't be enforced. So when we were cutting departments, we cut the departments that actually make this city move forward. So I've presented a recommendation where we double down on some of the charter departments and give them the power to do what's right. You need a planning department with a solid plan that clearly articulates how it's supposed to be. And you need a department that can inspect those buildings and ensure us that the standards are being met. And we shouldn't have to call 311 to say, hey, I just noticed a really big thing on top of a building. The one by the street with a really big hole. They don't need us to tell them that, except for the fact that they're not paying attention and they don't care. And that's got to change. So we shouldn't have to rely on a city attorney to do what's simply right. We should have building and safety, and they should have the authority to go in there and enforce the standards, not simply because we complain.
It's the same thing over and over again. We've been talking about friggin' billboards for years, and nobody's doing anything about it. We ought to look into it. We ought to form a committee. We ought to form a commission to form a committee. It's always the same. But we have billboards everywhere. I just don't understand why we just can't get anything done. And I think the problem is it's the way this city hall operates. It's about photo ops. It's about showing up places for 2 minutes. I was planting trees at King Middle School a week and a half ago, and this guy shows up with an entourage. We pay that entourage, okay? Instead of, as Stephen said, paying the people that we need in the departments to do the job that we need them to do. We need to get back to basics in this city. We need to become a boring city again, where we get the things done that we need to get done, and leave Hollywood for Hollywood. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. It's kind of a new question, an interesting big question, and it has to do with if a major disaster were to hit, such as the big one. Living in one of the largest cities in America and the fact that most Americans have a mere 3-day supply of food on hand. If we were to encounter a major disaster or disruption of food supply, we could have a food shortage. Have you ever considered this? And what is your plan for food security in Los Angeles? Stephen Box.
I'm a volunteer fireman. I'm a member of our Community Emergency Response Team, Level 3, medically trained. And I'm telling you, we don't have a plan in the city of LA. We have departments that pursue funding. They compete against each other. And if there's a plan, well then I'm sure you've all heard it. I haven't heard our plan yet. When Griffith Park caught on fire, my wife and I were the first ones to respond to set up the evacuation center at Marshall High School. The Red Cross didn't get there till 11 o'clock because of traffic. Something we hadn't planned for. When there's an emergency, we're going to be in dire straits. I'm also the guy that fought good and hard for community gardens. The city of LA was going to levy a fee on them. 800 gardeners in the valley, for example, were going to be burdened with a fee because they were trying to grow fruits and vegetables and actually come off the grid, so to speak. And then we found out it wasn't even our land. We have such misguided approaches to managing our resources and planning ahead that, quite honestly, we are in dire straits. We won't be able to get to the food. And it's imperative that we work together to come up with a plan. One of the first things we need to do is stop competing with ourselves and work on that plan.
Tomas?
Actually, I'm not going to criticize the incumbent on this one. He has been very outspoken about this, to your credit. So, and to be honest, if we as homeowners don't listen to the plans that are in place, I do have about a 10-day food supply in our house, and sometimes the kids rate it, so sometimes it goes down to 8 days and we replenish it. So, you know, that's one of the things. I think we all individually have to act responsibly, and that's the way to go, I think.
We're all coming over to your house.
Yeah. Just on the 9th was the 40th anniversary of the Sylmar earthquake. 40 years. 1994, the Northridge earthquake. Los Angeles is the best prepared city in the world. You know who said that? I don't know if you like him, but I think he travels the world to wherever there's a disaster. Anderson Cooper said LA is the most prepared super city of any city. And we expect another earthquake. So be prepared. Have a family plan. Have a neighborhood plan, have a block plan, and a regional plan. And the fire department and the police department will go to where the worst situation is first. So we may have to be self-independent. And state government will work in the federal government. I was there in '94 with then President Clinton, who arrived with Mayor Reardon out on the 118 freeway to view the disaster and to implement the change. And you see what Clinton did so well to help California turn around Los Angeles, as opposed to the other president who forgot all about New Orleans. There was a plan, it was executed rightly, and they continue to upgrade it. Be prepared. Know your neighbor.
Thank you. I asked these gentlemen a kind of a longer term question at the very beginning. What was it? Vision. Okay. Vision for Silver Lake 20 years from now. Start with Tom LaBonge and go right down the line. 20 years from now.
20 years from now. I'm proud of what we did. After that earthquake in '71, we saved Marshall High. Very important. We saved Silver Lake. We saved Silver Lake. I think the dam should have been put back a little. God bless John Sloan, who was the neighborhood leader who led it, just to give a little more space down there. But that was very important. Recently, what we did, and Glenn is here, and many people were here who made a difference in getting that walking path around. Stand up for a second. When I first got elected, I told Eric Garcetti, I'm going out with DWP. I walked him around the Silver Lake, and we got the cove, and I pushed Jim Yanata in the street, held his jacket, and said, we got to get the path on the street. That's real important. Preserving our homes, real important. Doesn't happen unless you have a relationship to get the work done. And I've worked for this city, which I'm proud of. I work for this neighborhood I'm proud of. I'm proud of the new track and field, the new field down at Riverside for youth soccer. I'm proud of all these things. I'm proud of working with Barnsdall. I want your vote. I want to return to City Hall to help you love this city more and enjoy this city more.
Go ahead, either one of you. The question is, 20 years from now, what do you see as Silver Lake being? What are you hoping or seeing?
Silver Lake or Los Angeles?
Silver Lake.
Oh, it's just Silver Lake. Just a place that's in harmony, a place that's in partnership. Schools, the libraries, the parks, all working together. Right now they're not. They're all separate cities, if you will. LUST is fenced off. You want to go into King Middle School to play basketball, you got to climb the fence. Just to bring people together so as to realize economies of scale. And that's going to be necessary because sadly...
The DWP getting back at us.
We need that reverse feed-in thing you were talking about earlier.
I get to start all over again. I was getting the mood going there. Anyways, okay.
Tomas, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's, you know, and maybe I was a little harsh earlier on Tom, and I am sorry. I do like you, and I know that you care about this city. So I know that you care, and I know your wife, and you're a very nice woman, and I know your family. So, you know, maybe we need to change the tone here, so I'm going to be the first to change it. You know, we have different vision. We have a different vision of the city. I would like our city to be more environmentally friendly. I've been working for years to try to get rid of gas blowers. 1 in 5 children in Los Angeles uses an inhaler. Okay? I'm doing well living in Los Feliz. I don't have that many problems, but most people are not. Okay? And those are the people that I worry about. Most people in schools are not doing well. So, it's just a vision maybe of fairness. That everyone gets a shot at this American dream that I got a shot at. And yeah, that's what I'd like to see. And I think Silver Lake is the place for it to happen. I think this is a really fair place that people care about each other. Sorry, one more time there. Yeah.
Thank you.
I believe the Great City Commitment is based on 4 commitments, and that is to public safety, to public works, to public health, and to public education. And specifically how that applies to Silver Lake, what I see is a community where 20 years from now, the character and personality of your community has been preserved. Streets are safe for everybody, so our most vulnerable can cross the streets to get to parks, to get to the places they need to go. That you should be able to find employment close to your home instead of having to travel farther and farther, as I do, in the entertainment industry as our jobs are leaving town. So you should be supported by a vibrant economy. Get there, we're going to have to balance the city's budget. We're going to come up with a city plan that supports you so you can stop fighting every single time somebody wants to put a canopy on their building. So we can stop fighting to get a street improvement to get across the street. We should be able to count on these things so we can work on the big things that make this city great, so that we can partner in greatness. Thank you.
This is by far the most polite audience I've ever seen in the city. You're just the nicest people ever, I have to say. We have 1 minute for each of you to make a final statement on any topic you'd like. It can be about your vision, or it can be about something really bugging you, but just go ahead and let have it for 1 minute. Go ahead and start, Tom LaBonge.
Thank you very much, Neighborhood Council. Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you for coming out and being part of this civic process. I know many of you. I hope to get your vote. I hope you vote yes on every charter amendment that's on there, especially L, that helps our libraries. I hope you get engaged, and I hope you enjoy this city that we live in. This is not a city that's falling, this is a city that's growing. We have a challenging time. You want to have someone who has experience and dedication, who works hard to engage people, which is so important for the success. Because many of you, I've had success because I've listened to you. I've listened to you and saw what your dreams and hopes were and tried to deliver on it. And I don't do it alone. I get people to help me. I'm proud I have the support of the police and firefighters in Los Angeles. I'm proud I have the support of many, many elected officials. But you'll see all that in the campaign. I think you know me from the neighborhood. I thank you, and I especially thank the Neighborhood Council for this event tonight. And my two, Mr. Box and Mr. Grady as well. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for having us here this evening. And I'd like to thank Mr. LaBonge for 35 years of public service. being said, we're talking tonight about a budget crisis. We're talking about a land use crisis. We're talking about traffic congestion crisis, collapsing infrastructure crisis, a crisis of connectivity with the many different agencies and authorities that have a piece of the community, from the Metro to the LEOSD to the CRA. And through it all, what we're talking about is a crisis of leadership. So I contend we can't afford 4 more years in the wrong direction. And I offer up, you've got a choice tonight between continuing to move in the wrong direction with people that are causing problems or someone who has a track record for solving problems. I would offer up that you have a choice tonight between someone who's completely agreeable and someone who's completely accountable. So my name is Stephen Box. I'm the outsider on the inside, and I'd like your vote.
My neighbor is not voting for me. You know why he's not voting? Because he said, if you get elected, will you pave my street? I said, no. He said, why not? Because your street doesn't need paving. Okay? And it's not meant to be funny. We need to divert our assets that this society has, that this city has, to the folks who need it the most. Okay? And quite frankly, a lot of CD4, we're doing pretty well. Okay? We're doing pretty well. And we need to get those things to the people that need it the most. And yes, that is libraries, schools, parks. So I'm trying to bring a fairer system to city government. I'm starting right with me. Okay? I'm going to take a half salary because it's the right thing to do. You know, I think it's morally wrong to be making $180,000 when there are over 70,000 homeless people on the street in Los Angeles. It's shameful. And I want to bring that kind of attitude where people actually care about other people. So, my name is Tomas and I'm running for City Council. And finally, thank you to Stephen Box and thank you to Tom LaBonge. Let me just say one other thing. I'm glad there's another district where we're killing each other. And for the most part, we have a very positive campaign, and I hope that stays the same. I'm very proud of that.
Yes, everybody, thank you very much. It's been a great audience. I hope you learned a lot tonight. We have some really good answers, and we certainly appreciate the 3 candidates that are running, because I got to tell you, regardless of what you think of one or the other, I applaud every single one of them for sticking their neck out and coming before the public and wanting to make the city of Los Angeles a better place. And also, I want to thank Joe Stewart. Great job. We got every question that came in, and also Patty Hollis from the church here for allowing us to use this space. Andrew Sills for the speaker system, and also wanted to let me know that the church is really active in the preparation. When there was a question about being prepared for earthquakes and floods and things like that. They have a food pantry here that they help a lot of people several days a week. Wednesdays at 6:30, 5:30. So thanks everybody for coming, and we really appreciate it.
One last housekeeping item. If you did not sign the sign-in sheet, can you please stop at the front desk and sign it? It is our official record as a city agency that you came to this meeting tonight. And the other thing is that the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Governing Board meets Wednesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Victoria Street Auditorium. We invite all of you to come and attend.
Also, at the next Neighborhood Council meeting, March 2, City Council President Eric Garcetti will be on our agenda toward the beginning.